Welcome back to another episode of the Passion in Motion podcast. I am your host, Mutsa, and today I'm joined by a very, very, very special guest. I've been looking so forward to this episode. It's Dr. Jaketra Bryant. Hi, Dr. Bryant. How's it going?
Hi. So excited to be here. Things are
Yeah,
going really, really well. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to have you here. So would you care to tell the people out there a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
Just a little short introduction
Okay.
to who Dr. Bryant is. And listener, if you're listening to this or watching this episode is going to specifically focus on DEI, and it's going to be all chat DEI and stuff. So she's an expert in DEI. So that's why she's here today. So anyway, over to you just to give just a little spiel about yourself.
Yeah. First off, thank you for just like initiating the conversation on DEI. Like we need to have it and we need to have more of it. And so let this not even be the first nor the last. And so again, I'm Dr. Jaketra Bryant and I'm out of the States. And so I'm in Columbus, Georgia mostly, but I travel like all around. And so my specialties are doing topics centered around diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm a licensed professional counselor, professional speaker, and researcher. And so my specialty areas are particularly looking at systems, culture, disparities, and systems, particularly when we talk about like culture and rooted issues and I guess we can say our land, our communities,
Yeah.
and just talking about what that looks like from a disparity like stance. And so we may be talking about like equity or cultural or issues in gender, issues in like health issues and like gender, all of those particular areas. Those are my research babies. And then I look at it from a psychological standpoint as well. And I've been a practicing clinician for like 16 years. And so that's my baby also. So I bring things from like a psychological standpoint. I'm a mom of a teenager. And so I guess you can say we're both like students because like I get to figure out what it is to be a mom to a teenager every single day based on whichever personality pops out. And so that's something. But yeah, and so that's pretty exciting. And so, yep. So that's me in a nutshell. So super excited about just the opportunity to talk about this topic, given all the circumstances over here in the States.
I love that. So just kind of before we get started, because I was just kind of looking at some of the work you've done over the years, what inspired you to like get into this line of work? Like what, because I know you were a radio host at some point. I know you were like a mental health person for people in prisons, it looked like. Mm-hmm. So in general, like what kind of inspired you to get into this?
Yeah. So I guess full circle, I saw that our like young kids like only wanted to just be movie stars. Nothing is wrong with movie stars because I love going to the movies also. They only wanted to be athletes and movie stars, like entertainment. And they just were never inspired by like the people within their homes and their families unless they were movie stars and entertainment. Yeah. And so I wanted to figure out and understand like why. And as I dove deeper into that, I saw that I wasn't even inspired by anybody in my own home. Like I felt like they were like just dysfunctional and like I didn't care for their relationships. I was actually afraid of marriage and afraid of like love and all those kind of things. And so that made me like just even research more about like the dysfunction within like the family line. Mm-hmm. And so the more I saw that, the more I like saw that these were just not my family issues, that like culturally and community and like systematically and worldly, there was a lot of suffrage happening around the world. And so like I just kind of set out to just like really set a lot of people free by like helping everybody like really find like love within families. And so my initiative really is to help bring like family units back together. And so my approach is that. So like a lot of my educational teachings when I like teach people is helping them to come back within. And so even though I may do organizations and even though I may like do professional speaking and I workshops, I always encourage people to work with I always encourage them to work on their unconscious belief and their self concept so they can be better humans and be more
Yeah.
authentic and like have better relationships with their families and with their kids and their spouses and their friends and themselves, because I want them to be better for whoever's inside of their home.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, most likely gonna end up going on a tangent, but this is it's just so fun because like I watch. I think I like to study things, and like when I watch, a lot of people judge reality TV, but when I
Yeah.
watch reality TV and someone is like, "Oh, this person is so bad," and then they actually talk about how they grew up and kind of the things
Yeah.
that affected how they were, like, you guess you start to understand to a deeper level like how these things do impact people. Like I was watching I mean, it's a pretty dumb reality TV show called Temptation Island that
Oh, I've heard of that.
I
Yeah,
just
I've heard
binge
of
watched
that.
it this whole weekend. And essentially,
Okay.
this one guy, like he's like a serial womanizer, whatever it is, and coming to hear about his childhood, like growing up in foster homes and getting into a situation where like he didn't have that role model of like what love
Yeah.
looks like and all that, and then just how that affected him, and now he's like 25, 26, and his love relationships, and how he felt like he had to fill this void with many like
Yeah.
things that didn't serve him or like make him a good partner essentially. And
Yep.
so he had never taken the time to introspect, so that the show was like kind of challenging him, like, why do you behave the way you behave? And then at some point he actually introspected, like, you know what, this is how I've always depended on myself from a very young age and I took myself to college and did this and I did this and did that, and it's made me maybe not
Mhm.
as, and also it's just interesting, like I've
Yep.
yeah, things
It
like
comes
that.
at full circle. And it relates into DEI totally. I'm telling you, and that's what made me like dive in deeper to it, and that's what like sets me apart from a lot of like the other. Besides, I got PhD, but that's what sets me apart from like a lot of the other people who, not knocking them, that got just
Yeah.
certificates, because I like have dove deep into the system of it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, nope, it's not just a like a certificate. It's deeper. Like it's
Hmm.
so many levels of what this is for real, because we're talking about identity and we're
Yeah.
talking about like acceptance and we're talking about like just like the social environments and what that looks like and these conscious levels and why people are responding and rejection and all kind of everything. Like it's so much that's happening. And
Yeah,
yep.
it is, and like you're just
Yeah.
in many things. Again, maybe that's a conversation that I have with you on another day, because
Yeah.
there's a lot we could talk about in that realm. I have so many ideas that I've
Yeah.
always wanted
For
to
sure.
just like have
Hmm.
conversations about. If it's just like
Yeah.
the attack on families today, and just different
Hmm.
things that are anyway. DEI. So what, for people out there who always hear the word, because it's become a buzzword, like
Yeah.
people throw around the word DEI like it's a
Yeah.
slur sometimes, like, oh, that's a DEI hire. These
Yeah.
days you hear about people talking about
I know.
if a plane crash happens, oh, was that a DEI hire?
I know.
Oh,
It's
it's
so
like,
weird.
what are you talking about? They don't just like let
It's
anybody
so
fly a
weird.
plane. And if it's a black person flying a plane or a woman flying a plane, you better believe that they were the best in their class. Like, don't,
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
safer with a black pilot. I don't know about you, but for me, because I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
the hoops. So anyway, for people that
Yeah.
now just throw that word around, what exactly is
Mhm.
DEI? Like,
Yeah.
what is it for the? Yeah, let's
Yeah.
just start from there, and then we can bridge on
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You're right. Like so yeah. So breaking the term down, so diverse. So it has a lot of layers, and so I'll try to do it like in a not in a school way, but so like diversity. Diversity is like in essence like looking at like um, getting individuals in who like not only have a using the term diverse or different or various or indifferent background, race, gender, sexuality, religion, academia, let me see, cultural background, perspective, ability, disability, like like all of it, like have all of those range, like I said, perspective, have all of those ranges
Mm-hmm.
into a place, if you will. So a place or organization could be school, it can be hires, it can be buildings, it can be organizations. So we're talking about like schools, fraternities. If we're looking at like hiring practices, things like that, you can say, I want a diverse like pool of people, individuals.
Yeah.
So that says that, hey, I don't want all like Eurocentric. So like that's been the whole thing. So we know that like there is a all white like setting of males, middle age, who typically get the pool. And
Yeah.
so diverse may mean, can we at least get some women in there? Or can we at
Mm-hmm.
least get black women? Can we at least get black men? Can we at least get Asian? Can we at least get some Gen Zs? Can we at least get like, cause so you may even like poll. So at any given time, you may even run a different diverse pool. And so that's the complexity. So sometimes I think what happens is when people like to throw out oh, DEI and the harm and the buzzword, at any time, diversity can mean something different because it has to be based on the demographics of whichever is the issue. So if we're talking about like aviation,
Mm-hmm.
in aviation, for instance, because of the plane crashes that keep happening in the United States. So if everybody who's been in there has been all white males and they've been between the age of 20 to 37,
Yeah.
and we've never had Hispanics, we've never had Asians, we've never had Black, we've never had women, we've never had African, we've never had mixed race, we've never had transgender, we've never had like LGBTQ, we've never had like, whatever, just keep naming. You never had like multi-race, like you never had like in like just keep naming. And
Yeah.
then so that means diversity in that setting would mean I need now to look at a pool of applicants who are in a different age range. I need a pool of a different gender, and I need a pool of a different like multi-race, because we don't have any representation in there. And
Mm.
so that's diversity for that pool. And so like it can range. And so
Yeah.
like that's the harm when people are just like, take it out, take it out. It's just like I'm positive the representation hasn't been representing the actual body of people who actually could be qualified. And
Yeah.
so that's one way, that's diversity for, settings and the complexity of it. And so, and then like equity, equity is interesting because equity is one that actually gets us all. And equity is very, very unfair because equity is fairness. And equity is being able to say, does your environment or your organization or your school, your fraternity, sorority, your constitution, does your rights, does your policy, does your like does your bank, does the like anything that is set up for people to
Mm.
like be able to make it, does can everyone make it if everyone was given that application, or do we have to like move it, or can like what like, and so mostly no, we can't. And then you have to say, why is that the case?
Yeah.
And then like then you have to say like, so okay, if everyone can't, equity is supposed to come in and say, all right, this means that you didn't either have enough diversity, like to even like acknowledge that, to actually have the representation to give you the awareness of it,
Mm.
to even bring up that, because you made your majority as this is the like this is what the status quo looks like. So you polled it based on this. So now we must like this is the level that everyone's reaching. So this level doesn't represent this. So that can't be the case. Because if I'm a woman that's in my 40s, but everything about my body, my mind, and my academics supposed to be like the 23-year-old white male, that's not right. if the way my body is supposed to be responding to carrots, pizza, everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound right. And so like and that's kind of what it is. And so equity is supposed to kick in to say like, is this actually like fair?
Mm.
And if I just got here, or if I didn't get the same education, or I didn't get the same books or the resources because I wasn't able to maybe have the same application or live in the same neighborhood or go to the same school or apply for the same position or make the same salary, how could I be right here?
Yeah.
And that's equity. And so we need equity because equity almost fights for us to say
Mm.
like, no, you need to consider where was my start line,
Mm-hmm.
and you judge me from there. And so equity kind of puts me in my bracket and says, and take my data from there. And so therefore my data now begins to be in a pool with other women who started at the same time with me.
Yeah. Equity reminds me of like that picture where you see like three boys looking into a fence,
Mhm.
and there's like, I think there's equity, there's equality, and then there's, I can't remember the other one. But it's like that picture, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, equity means it's not about, because equality is just you have the same size box. But if
Yeah.
like there's a shorter person and there's a taller person, you don't need the same size box.
Yeah.
The shorter person needs a taller box so they can
Yeah.
see the full game. The taller person doesn't need a taller box. Some people
Right.
say remove the boxes, like just remove the boxes so that, and have a fence. So there's no reason to even have the boxes. I know some people say that. Like, I don't know what that constitutes, but it just reminds me of that picture of like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think like, yeah, I don't believe you should remove the box either because like, no, it's like you have to consider that that's one of those things like people don't like to address that there's an elephant in the room, but you do. You need to also address that no, like the person that like you have to address equity. Like I didn't start where you started. And sometimes I have equity and like I started further, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like the other person didn't. You still should consider that because that does make a difference. And we can actually be of the same race, we can be of the same gender, and you still need to consider that because no one should be left behind because you keep placing everyone in this box. And that's what like diversity and like that's the whole purpose of like DEI. And then I is the inclusion, and that's what the inclusion is supposed to kick in. The inclusion is supposed to actually say like, if all of these parts continue to work together, then we're supposed to be included all together so that like we can actually like work together, and all these moving parts can actually like kind of continue holding the other person accountable, like the other person like can basically, if you're lacking something or you may have not been aware that like that person did need to like research that or look closer at that data, or there's a lack of representation here, or this person is not picking up the weight, whatever it is, that's the inclusion supposed to kind of kick in there, and all the parts should be working together. But that doesn't happen because usually what happens is underrepresentation in one area and overrepresentation in something else. And so you got the overly worked black woman, or overly like worked black man, even though he may still be in the room, he's like having heart attacks and strokes. So I don't think that count either to me. And so they all like tired, if you ask me. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, no, I love that. So to the people that say, okay, you know what? We should just focus on a merit-based economy. All these things should not even be counted. Like, oh, as long as you study, you're smart enough to do this, you should. And then to someone that says, why does this even matter though? If we historically look at pilots and most of them are white pilots, and we haven't had that many crashes. Why
yeah,
do we need now? What's the importance of including a Hispanic, an Asian, a black
yeah,
pilot? What's the point? Or like, oh, let's just make it. So what? I know that people will make those arguments.
yeah.
What do you say to that?
I say like we definitely need DEI because people will leave people out. like, and I say when people say that, I think people don't recognize how privileged they are,
Mm,
and that like people have been a product of DEI at some point in their lives. Like people may not want to realize that you've probably been hired or you've probably been a representation somewhere, some at some point, and not known
mm,
it, and they just didn't tell you, or and so like I'm positive I have been, and they just didn't tell me, and so like and so like people probably cognitive dissonance is very real. It's like when you just basically don't want to like come to this like, oh my goodness, what if this could be how like this maybe what if this is how I got here? What if this could be me?
yeah.
And that's real. And so if we lived in a world where people actually had good emotional intelligence and good self-reflection and awareness, and they were very aware of their unconscious bias and their microaggressions, then we wouldn't have that issue. But because the earlier statement about people don't really work on their like internal traumas and people project everything, then
Hmm.
that's why we can't. You wouldn't have someone actually fairly picking. You would have people picking because they don't want someone else there.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so that's
No, for 100%. And I feel like for me as well, it's you're losing out on really, really on well, intelligent people, right? Like, oh, I don't wanna have this interview with this person because I can't say their name. Or that name
yeah,
looks like it fits this image in my head. So obviously, nah, no ways are you good enough for this thing.
oh
When it's
yeah,
actually like this person is a bona fide genius. If you know what, and even if they are not a bona fide genius, even if they're dead smack average, that does
yeah,
not mean you can't give that person a chance because you don't know
yeah,
what potential they have. So that's also
yeah.
like you
Yeah,
hope.
oh, name bias is real. Name bias, we did not invent these terms. No, we
Yeah.
just got here. We are not old enough to have invented these things. And so that's another odd statement. So when people are like, why do we need this? We didn't invent these names. We didn't invent these biases. They were here because they were biases, because people have been projecting these things and they've existed. We're just now where people are not tolerating it. So like the noise is louder. And that's why there is like more uproar about it, because people are just like, I'm not tolerating this anymore.
Yeah.
And so like, nope, we didn't invent these names. There's
So
name bias. There's halo effect. There's nope.
so in actual in conversation with that, that leads us to it's not always been called DEI. It's come in many different forms, shapes, sizes, different acronyms, different words that mean we are including these people that have not been included before. Can you speak
Yeah.
a little bit about that for people who think, oh, DEI is just a new thing?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say DEI started after George Floyd, right? When that's
Yeah.
not true.
No.
So
Yeah.
can we go back a
Yeah,
little
nope.
bit to
Mm-mm.
shine a light
Yeah,
on
it's
that?
yeah. These are just like these. Nope. It started way before then. Like these are initiatives like equal employment. Like so, the whole like 1965, where in the states where Trump wanted to sign off a portion of that act, that was actually signing off equal like rights of the equal. I think it's I think is a part of the Equal Employment Acts, but that is an initiative that is with hiring practices that is centered around like a DEI initiative. It's not called DEI because it was 1965, but it is like the Lyndon Johnson Act, but it's
Hmm.
centered around the very similar thing, and it's about like hiring based on like Equal Opportunity Act, and so very similar. So they all are. They're saying, hey, you can't not discriminate against me. You're supposed to hire me, not looking at my race, not looking at my gender, not looking at any type of discrimination based on like disability or ability. Like I'm supposed to be able to have a fair chance to get hired and to have the same opportunities as like you have. Well, that's DEI initiative. And so during that time, 1965, like I wasn't born in 1965, but I'm very, very familiar about what was happening in the 60s when it comes to like definitely the States and actually around the world when we're talking about like Great Depression and
Mm-hmm.
all of those things, like very historic stuff was happening universally, as well as like if we're talking about Africa, Nelson Mandela times, like we can go on really.
Yeah.
Like in the 60s, universally, there was some stuff happening and where there was not a lot of equal rights like around the world. So the initiative to get people to see fairness was there. And so justice, fairness is a part of DEI. And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we may not have used those terms, but we definitely were promoting fairness and justice
Yeah.
around the world.
Exactly. Yeah. And then it brings me to say that, that cognitive dissonance that you're saying, that someone can say, oh, we don't need this thing. And then you actually find out that, for example, when you're talking about DEI in schools and DEI in the workplace, the beneficiaries of that, because people think, oh, this only benefits Black people, right?
Yeah.
When in actuality, if you look at the statistics, it actually benefited white women a lot more to where they are today. But you see, like a lot of white women will be like, "What? We don't need this. Why is this? Oh, I am." Or like the argument of like, I know there was that whole scandal in, I think it was Virginia, where it was a high school, like a very good high school, whatever, and then I think an Asian child didn't get into university, and the parents are like, "Oh, they didn't get this spot because of DEI." They passed the tests, and
Yeah.
a Black kid took their spot, and that's not fair. And so they wanted to like clamp it down or whatever the case. But now it's like, Black students make up like probably 7% or 6% of Harvard, for example. Like that's not
Right.
who you should be looking at. So if you cancel DEI, you're actually affecting yourself a lot more than you think you are. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of like what I've learned as well, that a lot of people think that this only benefits a few people. But as you were saying, DI also encapsulates disabilities, right? And anybody, no matter what skin, race, whatever you are, disability, you never, like, that affects everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's very layered. It's very multifaceted, actually. So it's like, so not only, so it goes like, so race. So we're looking at like race. So like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so socioeconomics. So when you mention race in academia, race in organizations, race in higher, and then you have to look at gender, and then you're supposed to look at religion. And so, like, even though jobs can't actually ask you, like, what's your religious practice, we have jobs and have people who actually have to get off or have fasting that wear hijabs and like practices such as that. So, that's actually religious practice where people literally, like, they're wearing their attire. So, it's
Mm-hmm.
very common. So, that's actually a religious practice. So, like, you cannot be discriminated against and you need to come and be a hire. So, that's a practice. Or we're talking about facial hair. So, things like that could be a part of a religion. So there has been people who have they're like within the past like 2 or 5 years, remember there was like this whole time where it's like people being discriminated against and asked to cut their hair, like the locks, all those things, the
Yeah.
mishandling of that could totally have been like religion. And so those things are discriminatory and those are DEI practices. There were supposed to be initiatives in place for that. And so even sexuality, so LGBTQ, people who may have been like mishandled during hiring practice because someone may have projected based on sexuality, whether they like feared support or bias or whichever beliefs, that could be something there. So like it's supposed to even be a balance. So someone should not have to pretend that their sexuality is of not a favored sexuality group for an interview. And so that includes if a woman dresses in a attire that may be the majority's like masculine way and this person wants to wear a suit and they're a woman, they should be able to wear a suit into a interview and
Mm-hmm.
still get the job. And
Yeah.
so like things like that where people say you need to dress professional, whatever the professionalism is for that person is that person's attire. So it's even things like that can be discriminatory. And those were even arguments of that. So it was like skin tone, color, the style of a person's hair. Like, so it goes into those layers. And then then if you go down even further, that's when you go into the academic side of things. So having people have fair shots at like reading. So a person can have a disability in their reading. So they can still read, but maybe they had an IEP or they have some type of like learning or cognitive like disability where they may have had like talk to text, or they had some type of like accommodations. And so inside of their accommodations, they didn't have to like read. They had people read to them, but they still did great in class. And now you're asking them to read a full document and produce a text, but they did excellent in class. And so they should still have rights to these like opportunities in like the career settings. And so those people shouldn't be excluded, but because of the like illiteracy and the ignorance of like the organization, now it's like, no, we're out. And so
Yeah.
things like that, when they get rid of DEI, it's like, you get rid of the, you know, the diversity that was supposed to be in the pool, that was supposed to educate you about that.
Yeah. So, in light of that, where do you think the world is going, given these DEI cuts? Like, a lot of the work around this has been essentially cut. Like Trump, for example, like a lot of departments that
Yeah.
worked in like a lot of DEI departments were, shut down. A lot of people who worked in these DEI departments lost their jobs. There's this now like rollback of DEI,
Yeah.
just like no more of this. I mean, I watched Love is Blind. We've been calling the new season of Love is Blind the DEI rollback season because it's based in Minnesota and it's just a lot of white people, and it was the most boring season. Why? Because diverse people make life more interesting. It's silly things,
Yeah.
like not silly, but like it's things on very micro level, like a reality TV show. And
Yeah.
then macro level, you're working in the government and there's a government initiative and these people are now rolled back. They've been let go. So from what you've seen in the current climate of how things are, I don't know, where do you kind of see things going?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there is definitely going to be some like fight and some divisiveness. And so I'm hoping like there is like a lot, I'm hoping like next year there'll be a lot of like pushback, like the other end will get mad and like,
Yeah.
people will get up and vote and they'll like push back and like kind of like get out of shock and like stop being in the participating of the conversation. Sometimes it takes like things like this to shake people up. I like historically like to like I watch a lot of like trends in history,
Mm,
and trends in history actually move people. And so like, we've been here before. And
yeah.
so even though like this is, I'm my first time in this world, we've been here before. And in being here before, like trends in history, people, you make a couple people mad enough, like
They get to
like
something.
yeah. And then I think we have a generation that I love Gen Z personally. Like a lot of people like don't care for them, but I really love them. And so I think they don't like their boldness, but I personally love their boldness. But I think people don't like their boldness because they like complacency.
Mm,
And I like their boldness because the world is complacent. and so I'm like, no, y'all are a little dysfunctional actually.
yeah.
So, and they kind of see through that. And so I think that maybe some of the people who had their faith in government, this, even though it is tender that they did lose some their jobs, like my family like works in my sister, like she like does some stuff with CDC, and my brother works government. But I have to be totally honest with them, they also are a little bit more like certain in security in
Hmm.
people, and they are not as daring either. And so like
Mm,
I also think that sometimes that is also like area that they may need to be shaken up a little bit in,
mm,
because their faith may be not, this is not even like about faith in creator. This is more so like I think this is like their certainty, and they like versus kind of like moving more into their authentic self. Like it's like you're putting your reliance in individual people versus like you're pretty powerful yourself in my book. And so I'm one of those people that's like, Like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm like that too. I'm like that too.
yeah,
I like to shake things up and also just, I don't like to be static. I like to just,
yeah,
yeah, I think when you challenge yourself and you put yourself in situations that you normally wouldn't put yourself in, that's when growth happens, right? That's when life actually
yeah,
gets interesting. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm more of, I don't even know if it's like being a rebel, but people say we're rebels.
Yeah, and I've been like that since I was a kid, and I scared them, and they
Yeah.
were just like, "No, no, where are you going?" And then when I became an entrepreneur, it was like, "But what are you gonna do for money?" And I was like, "We'll figure it out." And then so are the two government workers, and they're just
Hmm.
like, "Oh." And I like am actually in this time and making more money like each month,
Wow.
and like yeah, and so they're just like, this is so strange. And everybody keeps asking me, they're just like, so how are you doing, DEI? And I was just like, I've actually gotten a grant and I'm about to write
Wow.
another one. And I was like, I don't fool with government people anyway. I was like, that government, I'm too much of a rebel to work for government. And I was like, I got like a small contract with the government as a, like, they just let me do presentations. They kept me off of too much off of post. I'm too much of a rebel anyway. They kept
Hmm.
me I couldn't go too close anyway to him.
Yeah.
So, so I already kind of knew it was like, let me over here with them. And so,
No, I
yeah,
love that. I love
yeah,
that. I think I honestly, like you're saying, I'm the same person. Because my parents would be like, you need to do something that's safe. I'm just like, no, you know what? I'm gonna go into this unwalked path and I'm gonna figure it out because I believe that I always figure it out, and I don't care. I don't know where it takes me, but I would
yeah,
rather do that than sit behind a screen all
yeah,
day and I feel unfulfilled doing that. I would rather go out there, and if life throws punches, you know what? It is what it is. Yeah,
yeah.
punch.
Punch it back, or like what you prefer from there. Yeah, and I think the same thing with like when it comes to DEI, like, and that's why I was like, I feel like historically, like I said, like when I like started studying systems and studying these areas, like that was some of the trends that I started seeing. I was like, no, we've been here, like we've kind of
Hmm.
been here. And in being here, we actually started raising up like that's how I started. I went to Africa for like November, like for the holiday, and I either never paid attention or didn't see that during that same time in the 60s, all of that was happening in like the States with like Martin Luther King, and like Nelson Mandela at the same
Hmm.
time. I was like, either they were all like talking and or something. And I was like, that can't be coincidence. And
Yeah.
so, and I was like, and like there was a lot in that same year, like those same years. And I was like, that's a lot for that same time frame all around the world.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I'm sure that like this is probably pretty significant. And
Yeah.
so and so
You know what they
yeah.
say? There's nothing new under the sun. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
this is not the first time we're here. Like this
No,
is, yeah,
no.
we're just in a cycle. Maybe now we're getting to that part of the cycle where like it's getting hot because it's about to like
Yeah.
get to this place and it's gonna come down and then we start over again.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, I was in a training once, and this one lady said it. She was like, it was like a training about like race hate. It was after like in Georgia where they had like burned a nail salon down, like
mhm,
It was Asian hate, and so she was talking about that, and they had burned like an Asian salon down, and she was like, things have to. She wasn't talking particularly about when she said that, but she was talking about things have to kind of like burn down to rebuild. And so I was like, yeah, like I totally agree. And I think that this may be like what we're kind of witnessing. And
yeah.
so I think when you're a little bit more solid internally because you've done some introspective work, then like you're least likely to kind of be shaken a lot. I think you're like ready to go and
Hmm.
like can see what's happening, and like Jasmine Crockett, that's like my girl. I feel like I was like, let me
Yeah.
just go and get her autograph because that girl is like just moving.
I love
And
her.
so
Yeah. She's great.
yeah.
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 No,
So some
she's
people are
awesome.
like just a little bit more solid. They got strategy. They're just like, yeah, I know what this is.
Yeah. Exactly. So, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I was kind of curious. So, when I know you've done a lot of like what are they called? Not brown bags, but you've gone to companies and you talk to them about DEI and DEI initiatives and like accessibility. I know you wrote an article on that, like accessibility in the workplace. So when a company does reach out to you and say, "Hey, we would love you to come and talk to us and run us through a session," what are the kind of things that you do when you get there? Like, how do you? Because I know a lot of times companies will say, this happened a lot after George Floyd. Well, like now it was like the hip thing to do, right? To have a DI initiative where it's like, oh, I don't know, just things that didn't really like. It was just very surface level for the most part. It wasn't like, oh, like you'd have that token black person who or whatever, just things that really actually aren't, like not the crux of the issue. Like, oh, okay, are you gonna give us Juneteenth off? Like, no, if you wanna take it off, it's like, things like that where it's like, you gotta put your money where your mouth is. Anyway, so when you do go to these companies, what's your process? Like, what are the kind of things that you look out for?
Yeah, so I have a pretty unique type of like program. So my brain, it's a really unique one. So I create to keep my business very, very unique. I create a tailored because I really do DEI. So I create a tailored program according to the actual demographics there. So
Mm,
I'm a natural researcher and then clinician also. So I'm actually taking assessments. So I'm doing the demographics. I'm actually doing data, and I'm pulling so I did this one wasn't DEI that I did virtually with a group in Omaha. It was a lot of they were directors and HR, and they were over museums, and they were over everything. It was like CEOs and a lot, and
yeah.
it's retention, and they were on hiring practices. So it was still inclusion, because it was onboarding. So I needed to work on hiring practices and inclusion and questions and all that. Because if I can get them in on how to hire in a more diverse way, then if I can grab you early stages, then I like to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually worked with them on assessments. So I give them assessments. So I actually create an assessment for them, and I have my interns. I teach them how to do data analysis, actually, where I'm creating a data analysis where I show them things about themselves and how to actually create a team based on a lot of things, based on psychology, based on birth order, based on gender, based on environment. I'm using it's so diverse when we finish with it. And so because multiple people are coming, I just help them to know how to just have a different, broader thought. And
Mm,
so, just how I was telling you, I literally help people to just keep thinking, think bigger about what diversity is, just go bigger with it. And so, I may walk into a company and do that on a much larger scale for them. And then, from there, that other piece involved me teaching them more mindfulness, because I'm really big on helping you be more introspective. And so I create workbooks, and I do breathing practices. Literally we're sitting there learning how to be mindful, learning how to practice being in the now moment, and
mm,
learning how to slow your day down and be non-judgmental, and take a look at who's even around you and who you are, and stop projecting your stuff and feeling like you're in competition with your sister, and because you're still mad at your sister, and now you can't hire this person, and what's actually going on with your company, that you're projecting that onto someone else.
mm,
And so I get down deep into the levels of what's even going on, that you're projecting all this out. And so I take them through psychological things,
wow.
also. And so,
Mm,
it's a deeper type of thing. And then when it's inclusion practices, sometimes there's a puzzle. I sometimes have if I work with schools, or if I work with individuals, if we have time with it, because my stuff is over days or over time. So you have to buy my packages. And so If it's in person, I try to like make them do in person more. Then it may be 6 sessions over time. So my unity puzzle is the final thing a lot, where I only give them one instruction just to like put together a puzzle. So
Oh,
that's all you get. And so you have to actually come up with like how to put it together using like you. So utilize the people that you have in a room and come up with like the best ways and practices based on like each person's skills and talents and all the things you learned about this person prior with like,
hmm
and prior to that we would have talked about like all the diverse things about that person. So I would have already went through I would have already done the D and the E, like of the like the lessons already. And so they
that's
would have
cool.
like, yeah, they would have already learned. I would have already had each person in the room break down their D. Like they would have been like, I'm
Mm.
a mom from Hungary. I have like 3 siblings. I was raised in a farm. Like I'm left-handed. Like they would have learned all those things like already.
That's really cool. I like that. Yeah, that sounds like a very introspective, like
Yeah.
type of. Yeah, I love that. So, how do companies usually like? How do like if someone's hearing this and say, you know what, I would
Yeah.
love for you to come to my company and
Yeah.
give a workshop. How do people like find you or get in touch?
Yeah, yeah. Usually, I have my assistant. We do outreach a lot, and we reach out to them since I'm a team of I with my interns. So like, so my assistant will reach out to the ones that we like will target and be like, "Ooh, let's keep an eye on this company," or "I want to see this
hmm
company. That company's size looks like something I can kind of manage or do." We were finding different ones through like me professionally speaking around, but like yeah, like my um, usually we're outreaching to them, like kind of we're just like seeking them out or like word of mouth or like yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so sometimes people are just like making referrals and yeah,
Okay.
since I'm still like a individual business, usually it's people just like, hey, I worked with this person.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, so yeah, if anyone's listening to this and you'd love for her to come, like find her on LinkedIn. She's great and she'll respond. So
Yeah.
you'll, yeah.
And
So
I guess like I don't know if this you'll have my information up or I'll either have to give it to you to post up in the box or somehow.
sure, yeah. I think I'll have that when I post that. Like obviously, like I'll have your
Yeah.
LinkedIn tagged and
Yeah.
all that other
Oh,
fun
well, it's
stuff.
under my name. It'll be under like Jaketra Bryant. So I'm all
Yeah,
everything's under my name, Dr. Jaketra Bryant, Coaching and Speaking LLC.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So I appreciate you coming. And I think the last thing is that I know when we like the first time we met, we kind of just talked about how DEI actually like affects everybody. And I'll never forget like when we're having a conversation about when someone has like a pregnant wife, DEI affects you because you need like it's just the different levels
Yeah.
that it affects you that you might as a man or as even as a white man or just the things that like it actually can affect you like in your daily life that and you never thought it was a DEI thing. You thought you might probably
Yeah.
think it's something else,
Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I was in I remember telling you the story. Yeah, I was in like the one particular one that really I think should like really humble everybody. When I was like inside of a bathroom when we were in Vales, and this man was in the women's bathroom with us changing his baby, and he was just like the baby was just like crying and crying. He was like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He was apologizing to every woman in there, and he was just like his baby was just like he was like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And like I just totally got it. And that was the only place that the changing station was in. And he literally was like trying to hurry up and he was so awkward and he was just so uncomfortable. And like that was the only place that the changing station was in. And poor man and poor baby was just like trying to hurry. And that is DEI. Like DEI was literally in place of trying to get changing stations in every single bathroom. And like when Trump and everyone like shut it down by thinking it was just about transgender bathrooms, that was one of the initiatives. It was trying to be in every bathroom when they tried to like
mm,
literally make it all about transgender when it was also about family bathrooms. And so that men who actually are fathers who change babies can
Yeah.
go change babies comfortably without them hollering and without them being awkward.
Yeah.
Because restaurants, it's when it's private owned, they don't have to put a stall or anything in there. They can do what they want to, but this actually can actually kind of initiate and make sure that this is maybe part of the blueprint or something to
Hmm.
maybe a building requirement. But now, no.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I just think,
That is so fascinating. Like again, like and a lot of men are fathers out there, and I mean, a lot of men should be changing their
yeah,
babies, and it's like,
there's
yeah, it's not
some
just,
people. Some people are good dads.
yeah, exactly. So it's not just about, oh, have this only in women's bathrooms, because
Yeah,
that's not right, or that's not what things are. But anyway, like I'll always remember that story because I'm like, I've never thought about it in that way, and like I guess as you're saying that a lot of things just get taken over, like, oh, these are transgender bathrooms, like let's shut this down. But it's actually like, no, there's a lot more. That was just one
yeah.
thing that they picked up on and they ran with it. And when it's like,
Yeah, they
that's the
just ran
small
with it.
part.
I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, yeah. The transgender bathrooms are necessary because there is like safety. They do get actually harmed,
Yeah.
because there are people who actually are, they're angry people, and so, but that's just one component of them feeling very safe, and
Hmm.
so that was another issue on safety. And but like this was an issue about like they just kind of robbed that. And so, but I think, yeah, people just sign things away and they don't ever realize that no. So but I'm also positive that somebody who agreed to say no to DEI was probably a male that changed their child in the bathroom too, that didn't think about that either.
Yeah.
And so, just,
Because again, accessibility helps everyone. I think there was a stat that said that sometimes, like when they created ramps for people in wheelchairs, that actually improved certain aspects of able-bodied people. Like I remember that there's just many things that I know that they've changed to help people with certain disabilities, but because of that innovation, it actually helped a lot of people who don't even have that disability. Like a lot of things that are like, yeah, I just know for a small thing, it's closed captions. I cannot watch a movie anymore without subtitles,
yeah, right.
right?
That is a DEI effective. Like I actually was in Colorado teaching a course on DEI, and I had my first deaf person in a class, and she had translators. So they always ask me about translators for like another language, but that was my first person, and she actually raised her hand, and her translator spoke, and I was so proud of her. She was like, that classroom was packed too, and she was like, this is half DEI. She was like, because she was like, I'm always the only person in here, and she was like, and I always have to come with people to translate something for me. And she was like,
Mm,
and it doesn't feel like inclusion.
mm,
And so it wasn't my fault with it because, I'm just the speaker. But so, and
yeah.
I was so proud of her for saying something. And I was like, you're absolutely right. And I just was like, I'm so proud of you for even speaking up and saying it. And so she just said that she wanted more opportunities where like workshops could be like for her. And so where
Mm.
she didn't have to come in to workshops where she is the only person who is deaf.
Mm. That reminds me of something that I watched where there was like a fire alarm that went, but there was like a hearing impaired person. Everyone ran out of the room and they left that person because they couldn't hear the alarm, and they didn't know what was going on because they couldn't hear it, right? And
Mhm.
it really stuck to me as well. It's like that's one of
Yeah.
those things. Like how do you? Because again, we take it for granted, but someone
Yeah.
who can't actually hear a
Yep.
siren or an alarm, how
Yeah.
do you then
Yeah.
create? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. So I'm telling you, like, that's one thing, like with me like doing around, I travel with like the DEI. I like when I like start asking people, like I said, part of my exercises are I let people break down their areas of diversity. That's why I do it. I get to learn all newer areas of diversity and it keeps me on my toes, like constantly, even more and more layers. I learn like even more and it just removes more and more of my biases as well. And that's how
Yeah.
that's why I keep my like model like it is. Like the more introspective you are, the more like biases are out the door, the more your projections are out, the more open you are. Like, yeah,
Constantly learning. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Well, I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but I think this is a good a good place to end the pod. Yeah, I really do think that everyone should be able to learn from this, and I think there is power in just learning about inclusion, like including
Mhm.
more people in your life, and in general, I think it's just a really
Yeah.
really good thing. Do you have any last kind of words for the people out there in this particular topic or in general?
I like your last statement that you said. I'm gonna like actually say something with that one because I think that's gonna be it. I think that's one of the things. I think one of the things that I teach my son and something that I stood very true to that I feel like led me like further into this work is I like never felt like comfortable with just like having like my life be just okay with just people who looked and act like me. Like,
Mm,
and I don't have my son's life look like that. Like, I feel as if like the more diverse, the more like, exposed, the more culture, the more, and that's including from every level of socioeconomic to gender, race, opportunity, disadvantage, advantage, all of it. Like we're able to be present. Then I think I think the more I'm able to, even show up as my authentic self in every one of those spaces. And I would challenge people to do the same.
yeah, I know it's very, very important. I know people sometimes get scared, like, oh, if I'm around these kind of people and I say the wrong thing, then I'm gonna look like I'm racist. I'm gonna look like I'm ableist. I'm gonna look like, but I mean, to be honest, it's good. If
Yeah.
someone says the way you're acting or the way you're speaking right now comes across as this, and it might not
Yeah.
be intentional, but it will help you as well unlearn some of
Yeah.
those things that you didn't know about yourself. Like, oh, I had no idea me thinking this way was ableist. Me thinking this way was this.
Hmm.
Me thinking this. So yeah. I think as you said, it's very important.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to the podcast, and thank you, Dr. Bryant. People find her as well. I mean, again, she's awesome. So you'll just learn a lot from the things she posts. Like I'm always learning. So with that, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye.